And we're back. What's up, everybody? We're in another submodule here. This time we're talking about security. We're going to jump right in here. So, a couple different things we want to do for our app. All this security stuff is stuff that we don't have to do, but we want to do because we want to make our app, our code base, and actually in this video, we want to make our backend, our database, as safe as possible. Now, if you go into Firebase in the Firebase console and we go to our database, which is the Firestore database, there actually is rules here. These are security rules that run on top of your database. I did a whole video on this on YouTube, which I will link below. If you want to go through all of the details of how to write the rules, I would recommend watching that video first. But we're going to write some rules here, and we're going to do it a little bit faster now because I've covered it in that video. So just to remind everybody what these rules are rules on top of the database. So these rules allow us to restrict who can read or write to different parts of the database. So when we look at our data, we can see pretty quickly, like for example, the user's document. The only person that should be updating the user's profile is the current user. This other user here should not be able to update a different user's document. You can imagine a situation where maybe you wrote a function wrong. And for some reason, when this user went to save their profile, it updated the wrong ID and it went to this user's document. Even if you had the code wrong in your client app, the security rule would then stop it. So that's the root of what we're going to do in this video. Basically, for our database, which is just these 4 collections, we're going to write rules on top of the database. And these rules are kind of annoying because we can't write them in Swift, obviously. We have to use some special syntax here. So I've found that this is actually a great time to use ChatGPT. So what I'm going to do is actually jump into our user's document here. So what I'm going to do is actually screenshot the database here. And then I'm going to pull up ChatGPT and I'm just going to click and drag the screenshot into ChatGPT. And I'm going to say, write Firebase security rules for the user's collection. And the 2 rules that we're going to have is allow any user who is authenticated to read a user's document, but only allow the current user to write to their own document. So this way, if we have a situation in our app where maybe a user can look at another user's profile, they can read another user's profile, but they shouldn't be able to write to another user's profile. Let's go ahead and click enter and see what happens. And these rules are not that complex. So after we get them, you can just copy it. All right. So the rule is here. Allow read if request.auth is not null. Allow write only if they're writing to their own document. And that's exactly what I wanted. So just so that we can read this. So look for our database, match the user's collection for any document ID. This is the user ID. And then we're going to say, allow anyone to read if the person that is reading at the time is authenticated, meaning their authentication is not nil. Also, allow anyone to write if they are authenticated and their user ID is equal to the user ID that is the document ID. So only the current user would be able to write to their own document. Now I'm going to go back to the database. I'm going to go up to the chats tab here. And now we have another chat document. I'm going to again screenshot this. Go back to ChatGPT, pull this screenshot in, and let's say add another rule for the chats collection where, and I think we have a user ID. So we have a user ID in the document here. Only the user ID can read or write to the chat document. Allow read and write if the request is not nil and the request user ID is equal to the resource, meaning the data at this document with the user ID field. So it's exactly what we want. So only that user can then access that document. Let's say put the user rules and the chat rules in the same code. So they have, hopefully they'll put our first result along with our second result. All right, allow user ID and allow chat ID. All right, in here, we also have the messages sub collection here. So I also want to allow only the user ID to read and write from this sub collection as well. In the screenshot, there is also a messages sub collection of the chats document. Give the sub collection the same rule, except use the user ID from the parent chat document. So same rule, except the user ID for this entire collection should be the user ID from the parent document, because this is the user that's writing all of these messages. Let's go ahead and see if it works. Our chat rule is right, and now match the sub collection with the messages ID. If the request is not nil and the request.uid is equal to get, this is a separate function to get the user, let's see, go to the chat ID document. So this chat ID is going to come from this chat ID here, I believe, at the user ID. I think that is actually correct. We can test it in a second. This should allow read or write. Great. And now let's ask it to basically clean up this to make this a reusable function so that it's more human readable. Great. Now extract the get chat ID method into a reusable function that is more human readable. Let's see what it does now. So create a function called isChatOwner where it passes in a chat ID. And it's going to check that the auth is not nil and that the chat ID is equal to the data at the user ID. I think that is actually correct. Perfect. So now it refactored the code and said if isChatOwner. That's so much more human readable if I come back this in 6 months. I love it. Let's look at the rest of our database quick. So we did users, we did chats, chat reports. For chat reports, anybody should be able to write to this database, but you should only be able to write it on behalf of yourself. So a user should only be able to actually write the report if it is their user ID that is in the report. So you shouldn't be able to fake a report for somebody else's user ID. Or if we wrote code that accidentally wrote the wrong user ID, that would be a problem as well. So let's screenshot this and let's say, also add rules for chat reports. I think it's chat reports. Yeah, chat reports, where a user can only read or write if they are the user ID in the document. Let's test this out. We got our user rules, we got our chat rules, and now let's see what these new rules come out to be. Read or write if the user is authenticated and the data at the resource has the user ID. I believe that's what we wanted. Basically the same thing as isChatOwner. And then avatars, anybody should be able to read or write to the avatars collection. So I think let's just add a final rule for any other collection to require the user to be authenticated to read or write. So then it will try to match any collection that is not listed here should have a generic rule, just make sure that they are authenticated. And that's just a safety check that we'll have, and then we can always update these rules later if we go and add more data to our database. Cool, let's copy this code here and jump back into our security rules. I will paste these in. I get one error here, which is this little red cherry here. Let's go ahead and screenshot that. Let's ask ChatGPT. Firebase is giving me an error here. Slightly modified. Let's copy that line. I'm not sure what they did differently here. Let's paste it in here. And it looks like they added a space here. Is that all they did? And then, oh, the wildcard. I must have forgot the wildcard $sign here. Okay, let's delete this. Does this compile? Yes, it does. All right. We wrote our rules. That was pretty easy. Not only did ChatGPT write the rules for us, it also added better documentation than I would have written for the rules, and made it human readable by extracting functions. So this was incredibly easy. This used to be really difficult, and without ChatGPT, it is much more difficult. So pretty cool. Let's go ahead and publish it. And now let's just go into our app real quick. Let's switch to the development build so that we run Firebase. I'll switch to an iPhone, and let's go ahead and build and run, and let's just make sure that everything is working. Just FYI, these security rules, you generally don't want to touch them that often. They do go live immediately. So as soon as I publish this, it is live on the database. So if I wrote a rule wrong, it would break all those requests immediately. There is a development test console here, but I found that the development test is quite confusing, and we're not going to even spend time on that in this video. Honestly, these rules are not that complicated. I think we did them right. So, all right, immediately I can read everything. So we know some of the read rules are correct. Let's go ahead in here and try to type something. Great. If there was problems writing or reading to the chat document, it would have broken by now. Let's go ahead and let's see. We have the user ID. Let's see. Let's check the user document. So being able to write to the user document. Let's jump in here. Let's go ahead and back up our account. Let's sign in with Apple. Cool. Let's sign out. Now we should be in a new anonymous account. Let's go ahead and add in maybe the orange color. We'll make sure that the orange color did save. Great. So it pulled through. So user must be working. The chats were working as we just saw. Let's report a chat quick. So in my database, I should be able to see a new chat report come through. Let's talk to Steve. Yo, Steve. Let's report a chat. That was reported clearly. And then our last rule is on the reports and the everything else, which is reading the avatars, which obviously is working. Cool. And that is it. Although I do notice here that this looks terrible. So let's just fix this one cell real quick. Let's jump into, that is the chat row cell view, in which we must have updated for accessibility. Let's just keep that minimum scale factor of 1 so that we force it to be on one line and not scale down at all. Let's check it. That looks much better. And if I switch to my big font, do that real quick. Let's switch to accessibility. Let's go large font here. Switch back. That looks fine. Let's go to the biggest font. And that looks fine. All right, cool. I'll turn this back off. And just like that, we've added security rules on top of our database. And it wasn't that difficult. And let's go ahead and end this video with just switching over to our Firebase storage. So we're saving all of our images in the storage database. The storage database has its own set of rules here. So we just have general avatars here, and these avatars are not based by any user ID. So sometimes you'll have, like, if a user was creating a user profile, we might have a folder here for users, in which we might want to have a folder for each user. So you could write a rule where making sure that only the user can upload their own user ID. But with our database right now, it's basically any user can read or write to the avatars bucket here. So I'm just going to add a real basic rule in the storage here, just to make sure that anybody that's authenticated can read or write. So here we have the template rules that came when we started the project. Let's just delete all of this. And we'll just say read or write if the request.auth is not equal to null. And a semicolon. Let's delete this. And then we should be good to go. Let's publish that. Let's go ahead and build and run our app to a simulator one more time, and just make sure that we can both read and write to it. So we can read clearly because I'm getting the images here. Let's also try to write. So I'm going to create an avatar. Let's make a new avatar called, let's make him called Bacon. I had a friend in college named Bacon. Shout out to Bacon. I know that he is not watching, but wherever you are, Bacon, Godspeed. That does not look like the Bacon that I knew. So let's do one more. And that doesn't look like him either, but we're going to run with it. Let's click save. Let's see if it works, and it saved. Awesome. So the security rules are working. And now I want to jump into our code base and I want to look at the code here for delete account confirmed. I'm going to delete the async let code that we made earlier. And this is our code that when we go to delete account, we have to do all these things when we go and delete the user's account. So if I come into the app right now and I click delete, what do you think is going to happen? Before I say what's going to happen, I want you guys to think about it and let me know if this is going to succeed. And if it will not, why will it not succeed? Pause the video here, think about it, see if you can figure it out. I'm going to say the answer in 3, 2, 1. So in our function here, remember these try awaits are happening in order. Well, in the first try await here, we are deleting the authentication for the user. So now that we added these security rules, within the write security rule is delete. So the ability to delete is included under the umbrella term write. So all of our write functions have if request.auth is not equal to null. So if I go in my code base, as soon as we delete the user's authentication, then the user's auth is null, which therefore means that all of the other methods are going to fail because there is no auth. So right now we have a pretty bad bug in our code because we're deleting the auth and then this would fail and this would fail and this would fail. So in order to fix this, we just need to make this after the rest of them here. So I will delete all the user's data and maybe we do it in reverse importance. So we'll delete their chats first, then their avatars, and then their user profile, and then their auth. If I build and run this, this should work. Let's test this out. I will jump into our settings. Let's go ahead and delete the account and delete it forever. And just like that, we are back. So it did work now, success. If you tried to delete it before we move this to the end, it would have definitely failed. All right, let's go ahead and Option Command C. We'll make this a feature. And we'll make this a bug and we'll say fix, delete account, post, Firestore, security rules. Go ahead and stage it, commit it, push it up to GitHub, and I'll see y'all in the next video.